Gentlemen, welcome back. Today, I'll be building a brand new battery, which I believe will be the future of car starter batteries. Now, for the past 100 years, vehicle starting has relied primarily upon lead-acid starter batteries like this one right here. These batteries do work pretty well for that application, but they do tend to have a couple of major drawbacks. The first of which is lifespan. I find that these batteries tend to last 5 to 7 years at the longest, and often they don't even last that long, especially in cold climates. Now, the real flaw in these batteries is that they tend to be very vulnerable to certain types of abuse, which can be very common. In particular, discharging these batteries fully can damage them internally, leading to a significant reduction in their already short lifespan. This is made even worse if this happens in freezing weather, as the freezing weather and the battery being discharged can actually cause it to freeze completely solid. It is very easy in a cold climate to leave the battery and come back a couple weeks later, only to find that it's been discharged, frozen, and essentially destroyed. Luckily, in the past 20 years or so, we've gotten access to lithium ion batteries, which are essentially better than lead acid in just about every way. I'll put a comparison chart on the screen right now. If you don't know what any of the values mean, you can just read the description below. Just know that lithium ion starter batteries have actually been available for quite some time now, but they haven't caught on. The big reason for this is that lithium ion batteries actually have a major drawback, even worse than lead acid. If the battery is at 0 degrees Celsius and below, and you charge it, you'll actually destroy it in short order. This is obviously a problem for a starter battery because the moment you turn that ignition, regardless of the temperature, the battery will start to charge. And if it's 0 degrees or below, it'll just get destroyed. Now, only recently has there been a chemistry which actually solves that fundamental flaw. I actually have some right here. They're already on the market, and it's called lithium titanate oxide, or LTO for short. LTO batteries can be charged in freezing weather, and they come with an astonishingly high cycle life of 20,000 cycles. So essentially, I expect these batteries to work fine in cold weather, and I expect them to last essentially forever. So we'll start with the casing, which is 3D printed. Files in the description, of course. I chose polycarbonate, but any decent plastic will do, as long as it's not straight PLA, because PLA won't hold up in an engine bay. One problem I had with the print because of the polycarbonate is it warped on the bottom. So to fix that, instead of reprinting the whole thing, I'm just going to work with it. I'll put in some epoxy to level out the bottom so that the cells all sit flat. It's a little thick. It's kind of nearing the end of its life, but we'll put it to good use. So we'll get that into a heated enclosure where it can warm up and flow a little bit better to level out. The epoxy is cured, and as you can see, it flowed out quite well in the heated chamber. So now we're ready to install the batteries. Just to help them stay down a bit more reliably, I'll be using RTV silicone to secure them to the casing. So a couple of dabs in the bottom here. And I'm installing these in groups of 2 because the pack has 2 cells in parallel and 5 cells in series. 12-volt LTO batteries can actually be built with 5 or 6 cells in series, but I personally tend to think that 5 works a little bit better with the voltages on a 12-volt battery. I'll take that to the enclosure just to get it heated up to dry faster. Of course. Time to install the bus bars. Now, one thing I'm going to do before I put them on is I'm going to put on some dielectric grease onto these terminals. See, the issue with any electrical connection is the surface, no matter how smooth it is never perfectly in contact. So between these connections there will be some spaces that water and oxygen can get into and to corrode the electrical connection. So it's always an easy precaution just to add a little bit of this grease, which will fill those gaps up so that water and oxygen can't get in there and corrode anything. Try not to make too much of a mess. Although LTO batteries are more durable than other lithium chemistries, they do still require some protection. I won't be including a battery management system for this particular application. What I am still concerned about though is cell balancing. I do want these cells to remain in balance throughout the life of the battery. So I will be including a balancing board. Adhering this down is pretty simple. I'll go to one of my favorites, double-sided VHB tape. So now that's stuck down firmly, so I'll just do the wiring. This is pretty simple. We start at the negative terminal and then just work our way up from there. So all our connections are made minus our final connections. So to connect our terminals to the actual battery, I'm going to be using cables. These are 8-gauge silicone insulated wires rated for 200 degrees. So I believe these are good for 200 amps a pop. And one would probably be good enough, but I'm just using 2 because I really don't want to have any issues. So I already pre-drilled this to make it fit on the terminals. Flatten it out a bit for 2 wires. So one potential failure point that I want to address is actually the terminals. Once the battery is in use, it's going to have battery clamps applied, and those clamps might actually apply torque to these terminals. Now the problem with that is if they're not perfectly tight, that could cause the bolt on the underside to loosen over time and cause problems with the electrical connection. Now to avoid that, I've actually designed a taper in the receptacles of this case. But as an added safety measure, and because, you know, tolerances on these are hard to get perfect, I'm actually going to put an epoxy here to actually glue the terminals in and make them completely solid. It'll also help waterproof the terminals too. Time for the last part of our assembly, and that's going to be putting these cables on and installing the lid. So the way I have this planned out, the cable should go in like this and kind of fold up like that. I'll make sure I got a lot of dielectric grease because I don't want to have any problems with this connection. Just to make sure we don't have any explosive surprises during the assembly. Just lightly tighten that for now. So I'm going to include a washer to help spread the load out so that we don't crush down the plastic too much. And then of course I'm going to include a lot of grease as well. And I'll make sure I get a healthy coating on that bolt too. Alright, so now these are on, and one important thing to note is I didn't put a washer on top because I want these terminals to be connected directly to these brass bolts. I don't want the current to have to flow through washers because that'll add extra resistance to this connection. Now I am going to tighten these, but I'm not going to tighten them up all the way just yet. That's the basic idea. I'll just adjust it a little bit to make sure that it fits as well as possible. Alright, so everything's tightened down real tight, and I have the cables set up so that the lid pretty much just pops in there. So I'll just solvent wipe this and then we can glue it together. Now it's fully reasonable to expect this to be a bit of a messy process. Alright, moment of truth now. Place something on here to weigh it down. Alright, it's been 24 hours, the silicone is dried, the assembly is complete, and now we can move on to testing. Here is the basic benchtop test. I've got a load tester which will draw current from the battery. I have a multimeter which will measure the voltage of the battery, and then I have my current clamp meter which will measure how much current is flowing out of the battery. Click. We're losing about a volt at 38 amps. Test ends, there's a little bit of sag, but then we'll recover. Now just for good measure, I'll run a second test. Now we're losing about 0.7 volts at 38 amps. So based off of that, we'd expect the internal resistance of this to be about 20 milliohms. So for the vehicle testing setup, similar to the bench, we have a multimeter and a current clamp meter. The only real difference is that the load is being replaced with the vehicle starter motor. Alright, so we're going to start the car up. At 14C, the lead acid battery starts the car no problem as expected, with the lowest voltage at 10.48 volts with 214 amps of draw. At 14C, the 20 amp hour LTO battery starts the car no problem as expected, with the lowest voltage at 11.24 volts with 205 amps of draw. At negative 21C, the 20 amp hour LTO battery struggles a bit to start the car, but ultimately manages, with the lowest voltage at 7.04 volts with 275 amps of draw. Clearly this is pushing the limit of the smaller LTO battery. At negative 21C, the 40 amp hour LTO battery performs much better than its smaller counterpart, with the lowest voltage at 9.38 volts with 269 amps of draw. Still well within the limits of the battery. Alright, so all the testing's complete. I'm not going to show every single individual test on video because that would be boring. So instead I'm just going to summarize my results. The first finding that I made was that across all the battery types that I tested, the internal resistance of the battery rose as temperatures dropped. This is to be expected because the chemical reactions inside the battery take place slower at lower temperatures, as in the battery is less able to produce current at lower temperatures. The one thing that I didn't really expect was that the lead acid battery was actually only minimally affected by this. And in fact, across the temperature range that I tested, it actually maintained relatively consistent performance. Now, my second finding is that the internal resistance measured by testing on the vehicle was consistently lower compared to the test results on the bench. Now, I think the reason for this is that the vehicle draws much more current, in fact, 5 to 6 times as much. And for whatever reason, that does not produce 5 or 6 times the voltage drop. It produces less than that. So the third finding I made in my testing is that the LTO battery chemistries lose performance much faster in cold weather compared to the lead acid battery. Now, it is nice that we start out with more performance to begin with. In particular, this battery here at less than half the size of this lead acid is actually able to outperform the lead acid at room temperature. But that performance does go away a lot faster. In fact, in my testing, I observed that for every roughly 20 degrees Celsius of drop, the internal resistance of the battery, the LTO battery, roughly doubles. So here's a summary table showing my test results. If you want, you can pause the video and look through it. I did include a couple of rows for cranking amps and cold cranking amps. And you'll notice that the LTO battery has a relatively big difference between the two, whereas the lead acid battery generally doesn't. So in conclusion, I was right to double the size of this initial battery. While this thing does work fine in warmer climates, it doesn't quite cut it in the cold. Now, this double-sized version, of course, offers double the performance. I would estimate that this would reliably start vehicles in negative 30 degrees C and would probably even start vehicles below negative 40 degrees, which is certainly good enough for our climate. Now, if the cycle life data on LTO cells are to be believed, I look forward to this battery serving me reliably for many years and perhaps even decades to come. Cheers, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.